Hi everyone. Welcome back to the Potsmokers Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Potsmokers Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible. I use the Christian version of the King James Version of the Bible to put together the prophecy of Israel from the testimony of the various prophets of the Old Testament. It became the Book of Zion. And then, just for shits and giggles, I followed the directions that I found contained in the Book of Zion, and thus I became Zion and became the authority on earth for God. Imagine that. So, I am doing my very last necessary act before becoming Zion in real time, and that is to publish peace. And I'm doing that on YouTube and social media by reading to you from both books, the Book of Prophecy, which is the Book of Zion, and the corresponding Potsmoker's Bible. Now today, I am beginning the dissertation, yay, where I take the Bible verses one at a time and explain how they relate to modern life and why they are the prophecy of Israel. And today, I start with chapter 17 of the Potsmoker's Bible, neither their silver nor their gold. It starts with Psalms 142, 5-7, which becomes Zion 17, 1-3. I cried unto thee, O Lord. I said, Thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend unto my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I am. Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. The righteous shall compass me about, for thou shalt deal bountifully with me. Psalms tells us, well, Psalms 142, 5-7, well, I did do just that. I cried to God, just as my people should have done from the start. But I put, but God's hands were tied. We are, for all intents and purposes, a pre-space planet. We have to work out our primitive planetary problems on our own, except that society has turned on us. God is the gray. They have to be very careful in regards to Earth. Humanity is at a very dangerous point in our timeline. We have the means to do great harm, not only to each other, but to the gray also. We have very big bombs, so the gray must be cautious. They are physical after all. However, that doesn't mean that they aren't here to help. They are. But that help is not help like humans understand it. The gray left us the prophecy to give us the tools that we need to free ourselves. I cried out to God, and the gray answered. They made me work for our freedom. I had to find for myself the answer to my prayers. They didn't free me from the persecutors, nor did they keep me from prison, but they did guide me to the means to save not only myself, but a third of the population of Earth as well. I did the work, but the gray did give me the true aid, truth. And as they say, the truth shall set us free. The gray are here to help us save ourselves. They gave us their DNA and their knowledge, but we must learn to save ourselves. God isn't a tyrant or here to dictate. They are very much like us, and in order to ensure our survival, they have to give us the means to save ourselves. But that plan doesn't exclude them. They are here. They will come to us when we call on them as arranged long ago. Then, when we humans have figured out our own salvation is bound to theirs. Then they will come and teach us what we need to learn from them, because they have always intended to be part of us. Which brings us to Isaiah 25, 4 and 5, which becomes Zion 17, 4 and 5. For thou hast been a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow from heat, when the terrible ones are as a storm against the wall. Thou shalt bring down the strength of the strangers, so as the heat in the day in a dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud. The brand of the terrible ones shall be brought low. Isaiah 25, 4 and 5 reminds us and the gray that God has always been the refuge, but now that need became dire as climate goes wild. This is a timeline passage that tells us when God is to return, because the people are in danger, not from man, but from man-made climate change. God will be a refuge from the storm, a shadow from the heat when the terrible ones are against the wall, or, in other words, when shit hits the fan, the gray will be here to give aid. They are the guardian angels of our skies, and in times to come, they will give aid to their children. Verse 5 tells us that it's when the heat becomes intense that the strangers will be brought down. The strangers can only be those who the gray cannot hear. These strangers can be led, but they cannot be taught. They are forever estranged from them, being unheard. No one can go against the gray's projected thought. They can impose their will upon us if they choose, but of the strangers, they can't listen to the thought projection. They are forever beyond the reach of the gray's minds, as in they can't be taught. They can be manipulated, but they can't be taught. These strangers, being incapable of gray interaction, can only seek the gray through the gray human interface. But they have instead set them up as a scapegoat for the evils that they themselves have created. The branch of the terrible ones has been brought low. To this society, we, who freely use drugs, are the terrible ones. The strangers have chosen to reject the regretfully to deny the tree of life. Marijuana is, of course, the branch, and to us who use it, it is the tree of life. The life of the gray. THC plus DNA equals gray. To be gray is to not be strangers to God. We use the tree of life to know our forefathers, those whose DNA makes up a tiny part of our own anatomy. But as tiny as that part is, it is our greatest glory. Which brings us to Amos 6, which is Zion 12, or 17:6. Woe to them that are at ease in Zion, and trust in the mountains of Samaria, which are named the chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel came. Amos 6:1 speaks of the inhabitants of the Americas, the place of Zion, prior to the events that create the nation of Zion. Amos speaks directly to those who are at ease, the wealthy who trust in the ancient religions based on the events of Sumerian civilization, i.e., known religions. Samaria was the land of Iraq and the home of our first known civilization, the Sumerians. The Sumerian gods are the very gods of the Bible and the Quran. The first post-flood gods and the peoples were Sumerians. Abraham came from this place. So all the Torah-based religions apply. And that is exactly what Amos is saying. Americans who put their faith in the New Testament and the Quran and the Torah are in real trouble. They have set themselves up to take the greatest fall of all, the fall of America, and society along with it. Amos is telling us that Americans will be first to suffer, and rightly so. Zephaniah 3 1 to 5 becomes Zion 17 7 to 11. Woe unto her that is filthy and polluted to the oppressing city. She obeyeth not the voice. She receiveth not correction. She trusteth not in the Lord. She drew not near to her God. Her princes within her were roaring lions. Her judges are even wolves. They maw not the bones to the marrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth his judgment come to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. Zephaniah 3 1 to 5 continues the thought in this passage. She refers to the Lady of Liberty, the soul of America. She is filthy and polluted. Her cities are oppressive. America the Beautiful has in many ways become America the Ugly. Pollution, homelessness, violence. These are the adjectives used to describe our cities and our country. She, America, has rejected God. The Grey tried to work with the government, first with the USA, then England, and even Russia. But American might and arrogance led our leaders to reject the arrival of the Grey. America is to blame for all of the problems that are coming to be, and it's because they rejected the Grey. The Grey used every means to give voice to their thoughts. But the politicians rejected the truth. THC, they also rejected. The dire warnings and offers of aid that required them to change their evil ways. The Grey tried to speak to America, but Americans refused to hear. Americans' princes, the one percenters, are like raging lions, devouring everything it can, lording it over the weak as if by divine right. These princes, out of control, like lions roaring before they devour their prey. Her judges are wolves that devour, leaving nothing to their victims but empty shells cast away into prisons, stripped of all but the basis of means. These judges, like wolves, run in packs, sitting in benches, taking down their prey unimpeded. Her prophets are light and treacherous. They project prosperity and the false belief that they are justified in all that they do. The prophets, the media, and the analysts are the ones that preach what is and project the outcome that they foresee. And there I'm going to end for this session. So the next time I'll take up where I left off. May the Great watch over you, guide you, protect you, and keep you from all harm. May they teach you right from wrong, and may you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light, the unicorn way. Find your joy and pursue it. Make that your guild choice. Stay happy and high if you do drugs. You have every right and reason to. Believe me, I know. I read the book. I wrote the books. I'm going to say later now, because you know me. I love you way too much to ever say goodbye.